Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Um, well, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jandi Reynoso, and I am one of the advisors in Education USA, from Education USA in Mexico City. And here with us today, we have Dwayne from the Arts Center College of Design. Dwayne Oak Paisa. I hope I'm saying that right. And today he will be talking about more about careers in art and design, and then he will be also sharing information about the art design. So College of Art Design. So thank you so much everyone for being here. And we will start this presentation. First of all, I would like just to start by sharing what Education USA is, what we do. Dwayne, if you can help me to change slides, please. Great, thank you. So Education USA, we are a global network of advising centers from the U.S. State Department of Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. We provide unbiased, accurate, and also comprehensive information about all the full range of accredited U.S. higher education institutions. All of our events, all of our activities are free access to everyone, to the public in general. Our main activities, like this one, we do have virtual activities like this one. We have webinars, but we also have in-center activities. Our center is located at the Benjamin Franklin Library in Mexico City, where we do have activities that include advising, information sessions. We also have another like a lot of resources that you can use to prepare to take TOEFL, IELTS, GRE, ACT, etc. And we also have a lot of workshops. Just to conclude, we have around 26 advising centers in Mexico. If you are not in Mexico, but you would like to be in contact with other Education USA advising center, you can contact us and we will make sure to let you know the advising center that is closer to you. Okay, so now I would like to pass the time to Dwayne so he can start his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you again, everyone. My name is Dwayne Opaisa. I am Assistant Director of Admissions at Arts Center College of Design, and I'm going to be talking to you today about creative careers in the United States and kind of how you can make that happen for yourself. I'm going to stop my video just so we can focus on the slides here. So over the next 45 minutes or so, I'll talk about a little bit about common concerns and myths that many people think about when they're face when they're thinking about creative careers. We'll also talk about what goes into actually applying to art school. We'll look at different creative career options that you can pursue in your throughout the world, and particularly in the United States. And then we'll also look at have some time for questions at the end. So I'll leave some time there. So common concerns and myths. Debunked. So there's a lot of concerns that people have, understandably, about creative careers. And when they think about their student going to pursue art, there's some concerns, such as the fact that creative careers don't exist, which is false. There are definitely creative careers in a variety of different industries. So it's not just people who are working in studios or being painters or those sorts of things, which is definitely an opportunity that does exist, but opportunities in fields such as interaction design, product design, and various other fields have growing tech applications, for instance. There's also a myth that creative careers don't pay well. Now, as you can see on the right-hand side here, a lot of art schools in the US do have students who go on to have starting salaries that are well above what a lot of people may expect for art school graduates. So there's a lot of work that could be done in the entertainment industry, in tech, as we mentioned, and various other fields that we'll get into a little further in the presentation. And there's also a concern that creative careers don't provide social value. Why would you study art when you can study engineering or study law or medicine, which are all great fields, but creatives and creativity are really what's powering innovation. From designing autonomous cars to next generation smart devices, interfaces of the smart devices, creative professionals are really shaping our future in a lot of ways. So in applying to art school, what to know about US art and design colleges. So one thing to think about is the difference between an art college and an art program. So usually art colleges are going to be independent institutions, so they stand alone. They're not necessarily associated with a larger university, as many art programs will be. Art colleges may have performing arts, such as theater or music, while others may focus on visual arts and design. And even further still, some schools may focus specifically on music or specifically on film. So there's definitely schools out there that get even more specific than the majority of those art and design colleges. Many art and design colleges will also be associated with ACAD, which is the Association of Independent Colleges and of Art and Design. So that's an association. That's another great resource if you are looking for art schools in the United States. They have great search options there to see the different schools that are members of that organization and which ones are offering the majors that you're looking for. So a great resource to check out. With the art programs, some programs may have unique application requirements in addition to university requirements. So the university itself may have essay questions or things that you may need to meet. You may need to have certain test scores that may be different for different programs within that university. And then with a lot of the art programs, you may have to clear all of those university admissions requirements before they actually look at your application in an art program. So you have to kind of go through two separate processes before getting into that specific program if they do have a unique application. In another case, many art programs may only admit students who are currently enrolled at that university. So there's several cases where you may find schools that offer a BFA track for students, so a Bachelor's of Fine Art instead of a Bachelor of Arts degree, which is kind of the standard bachelor's degree that you would receive in the United States. So for some of those programs, they may start all of their students in the same first 2 years maybe, and then later on, some of those students will be able to go into a specific specialized art program. So there's a variety of different types of programs, but they all will give you a good level of training for the different fields that you might want to pursue. So more on applying to art school, the portfolio. All colleges will require a portfolio. Many schools have similar requirements, but it's definitely important to check that the requirements for the school are what you're meeting. So each school that you're applying to, you want to make sure that similar with if you're applying with essays, you want to make sure that you're answering the prompts in their essays. Different schools might be asking for different things depending on which program you're applying to or which term you're applying to or any number of things. So you definitely want to make sure that you're checking their portfolio requirements for each school that you're applying to and making sure that the portfolio you submit is still applicable. And when in doubt, ask the admission office. I think that's a great tip in so many different admission-related fields, but I think when thinking about art school, there's a big concern of like, oh, I don't know what's happening. I don't know who to talk to. If you talk to folks in the admission office, they'll be able to tell you what is exactly what the program is looking for in those portfolios. So definitely just reach out, ask questions. Many times, like at Art Center myself, we definitely mean that we definitely want to talk to students at any point, and we will. So we will definitely organize ways to help you understand what we're looking for there. So applying to art school standardized tests, some schools will require SAT or ACT, while others do not. That's just kind of a standard for most schools in the United States, colleges and universities, but art school, I think you find more are going to be a little more optional than others. Some schools may require English proficiency examinations, so TOEFL or IELTS are the standard examinations. Those may be required if English is not your first language and you have not been studying in language. Some schools may allow for you to take the Duolingo English test, or DET. This is a newer exam that a lot of schools are still kind of assessing and determining if it is something that they would like to accept, but many schools, including a lot of art and design schools, have begun accepting those tests. So that can be an option for students who may need to take an English proficiency exam for admission. In many cases, schools are able to waive that requirement if you study in English. That might be anywhere from 2 to 4 years. It varies with each school. So again, you want to check with the admission office and make sure that you are doing what you need to do. So creative careers, kind of getting into the fun part of the presentation. We'll talk about the traditional careers that you think about from the creative careers and go on to talk about the more emerging fields as well. So artistic careers that you know. Let's get started with ones you are familiar with. So exhibiting artists, that's kind of what most people think about. If you say that you're going to art school, they'll think, oh, so you're going to be a studio major, which some students are. Fine art or studio art majors are widely offered at universities in the United States, as well as at art and design schools. A lot of schools do have a track that is specifically on fine art or studio art or kind of that general practice. So at Art Center, we have a fine art program, for instance, that is going to be focusing on kind of that contemporary art practice. Some schools may have even more specific, they may kind of, all of their programs might be in that fine art realm. And so you might be majoring in sculpture or in video art. So that does differ between schools that you're applying to and looking at. So working to show and sell work in galleries around the world is kind of the goal of that exhibiting artist, and what a lot of these programs are really preparing students for at the core. So they work in a variety of different media, could be focusing on one medium, as I mentioned. If you're a sculpting major, you're going to be paying a lot more attention to sculpting than other media, whereas if you are kind of a fine art or a studio art major, you might be trying a lot of different types of media. Photography careers, another route that a lot of people are familiar with and think a lot about. So that you can pursue with a degree in photography or photojournalism. So a variety of different specializations that students can pursue in school and ultimately in their careers. Portraiture, fashion photography, automotive photography, landscape photography. Really, if you see pictures out in the world that were kind of paid for, so someone had to pay to take them, or was paid to take them, or they're purchased, that's kind of where that career lies. So it's kind of the visual world around us that are filled with photographs. That's where those career opportunities could land for many people. Photojournalism careers are also another route. So it's a little different than some of the traditional photography programs. Sometimes people do study journalism and have a knack for photography. Sometimes they have a background in photography and go back to school for journalism or something in those lines, but usually have some experience in both journalism and photography for pursuing that career. Another career that I know we see a lot of graduates from our photography program at Art Center going into is that art director career. So thinking about kind of the stylizing a whole shoot or things like that, or even just an issue of a magazine sort of thing. So a lot of different roles that you can take with photography. Illustration careers. Illustration is a major that's offered at many art and design schools. So that often we'll be focusing a lot in kind of storytelling, how to share ideas and stories visually. A lot of graduates will go on to pursue careers as graphic novel illustrators, children's book illustrators, visual development artists, character designers, surface designers. So if you're thinking about like patterns that you see in daily life, so on your clothes or wallpaper, furniture, all sorts of different things. Someone had to kind of come up with those patterns and design that. So a lot of illustration majors may go on and pursue those sorts of careers. A lot of our students, I'm here in Southern California, so we have a lot of students who go on to work in the entertainment field. So working in animation and those sorts of areas, doing the visual development. So a lot of great careers that can come from an illustration background. Graphic design careers. Graphic design is more than just designing things on a computer. Majors that students will pursue with graphic design often are called graphic design or maybe media arts, something in those realms. But it's really about arranging text and images in space. So thinking about careers such as a package designer or a book and publication designer, typeface designer, web design. So a lot of different roles that you can pursue that are thinking about how you're going to impactfully share a message on a screen or on paper in this any given space. With package design, you know, if you think about the things that you purchase every day, there's a reason that you pick them up. And part of that is the design that's on that packaging. And so it's a pretty influential role that those designers are playing in our daily lives. That's just one example of the kind of impact that those careers can have. So as I mentioned, I am here in Southern California. I'm sitting in my apartment in Los Angeles. Careers in entertainment is definitely something that I think a lot about when talking to students, and something that I know a lot of schools in the United States are definitely preparing students for. So some careers that in entertainment you can find film careers. So film programs can be found at many art colleges and universities, or at specialized film schools, as I mentioned earlier. So you can pursue careers as director, editor, cinematographer, screenwriter, producer, a lot of different roles that you can specialize in, technical roles even, so careers such as lighting and sound design, color correction, digital effects. Not all of those careers do require bachelor's degrees, but if you want to kind of be higher in those levels and be the designer who's going to be nominated for awards, a lot of those people do have that level of education and training behind them. So it can be helpful in understanding the wider film field and understanding that industry. Concept design and animation are another great way to take a career in the entertainment world. So programs to look for would be programs titled concept art or concept design, entertainment arts or entertainment design, animation. Those are the sorts of things that will be preparing students for these careers, where you are working largely in animation, but concept designers are really designing stories and concepts for TV, movies, animes, animated films, TV shows, all sorts of different things, even theme parks. So a lot of different ways that you can pursue careers as a concept artist, but you're really creating the world that a story is occupying. And then animators are bringing scenes to life with motion. So I do have some examples here. Some of our Art Center students. This is an example of some storyboarding animation. So this is hand-done animation. A lot of programs will also expose you to digital and hand-drawn animation, so you get a well-rounded understanding of that field. Careers in advertising can be kind of related to entertainment in a lot of ways. I think entertainment and advertising do go hand in hand in many times that we see it. Programs in advertising at art colleges definitely exist. You also do have marketing programs or communications degrees that you might be able to find at other schools that maybe aren't specialized art programs, but able to pursue those careers in entertainment. So working for advertising agencies as an art director or a creative director, copywriter, social media strategist or a content manager, really thinking about how social media is playing more and more of a role of how brands are able to communicate with different consumers. So that's definitely a big growing area in the advertisement world. Expanding the creative world. So I do want to talk a little bit more about some of those careers that are definitely creative in their basis, but maybe not in the ways that you're always thinking about. So first, we'll talk a little bit about industrial design. So students who are pursuing majors in industrial design or product design or transportation design, these students are often going to be pursuing careers crafting things that we use in our daily lives. So that's combining creativity with technical industrial knowledge. There's kind of two different ways to think about problem solving. There's kind of the engineering approach to problem solving and the design approach to problem solving. And so the students and the people who are pursuing careers in industrial design and those related fields are trying to solve similar issues as engineers, but they're trying to think about how they can craft these helpful and sleek solutions to the design, to the solution there. So, you know, they're going to be pursuing careers as commercial product designers, design strategists, trend forecasters, automotive exterior designers, a lot of different places that you can pursue different careers in the industrial design world. Interaction design, which I mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation. This is a field that is definitely growing. There's not a huge number of interaction design programs or programs that are titled such in the United States right now, but there's definitely a growing number of them. But it does incorporate graphic design, computer science, and of course, problem solving. So with interaction design, we like to think of it at Art Center as the approach and the study of how people are engaging with products, systems, and services in their daily lives. So with that, there's a growing use for augmented reality and virtual reality technologies, exploring how people engage with those technologies, but also exploring just the multitude of uses that can be available through those technologies. User experience designer, interaction designer, interface designer, content strategist, creative technologist, lots of cool different roles and titles that do exist out in the tech world that students can pursue after graduating from creative schools. Environmental design is another field that is definitely very creative in its basis. So thinking about pursuing a major in environmental design, interior design, architecture, landscape architecture, all of these programs, while taking different approaches, are going to be dealing with space and designing spaces and how people engage with those spaces. So you can pursue a career as a large-scale spatial designer. So that could be like thinking about parks and those sorts of spaces, or other sorts of public gathering spaces, exhibition designers, furniture design, landscape architects, or branded experience designers. I always like to bring up an example of an Art Center alumnus who was on the design team for the Apple Store concept. So kind of thinking about how you're able to create a space that really speaks to the brand's identity and the core values and the messaging, then it becomes kind of linked with the brand identity in many ways. So that's kind of what the brand experience design route can take you. So those are kind of the overview of the different options for careers that you can pursue in the creative world. And I'm definitely happy to talk more about different career opportunities afterward and answer those questions. But first, I did want to show you a brief video that is highlighting some of the places that Art Center graduates have gone in recent years, and seeing some of the different careers and paths that they've taken.
My name is Therese Swanepoel. I'm from South Africa. I work for Nike. I'm a workplace designer and research strategist, and I graduated from Art Center College of Design in 2013.
My name is Jacques Perot. I'm a computational designer. I work in the innovation group Futures at Adidas.
Hey, I'm Lois Kim, and I'm a visual strategist here at JPL.
My name is Daniel Jimenez, and I'm an exterior designer at Nissan Design America.
I'm Ping Wu. I'm an interaction designer at Hulu.
We're in the workplace design team space at Nike, so we're responsible for developing, curating, and creating amazing workplaces for the Nike employee. I came and did my internship here, and I connected really well with multiple teams and touched base with some people here. And it was only after my internship at the retail design team ended that I come here.
As a computational designer in future
Great. Well, thank you all so much for that, for your time. But at this point, I would like to open it up for questions. So let me pull myself back up here. Great. So I do see that we have a handful of questions already. So I'm going to start with some of those, and then we'll see what time we have left and if anyone has further questions. So first was difference between the chances of a transfer student getting admitted over other students. So that really does depend on each individual school. Unfortunately, I can't give you a very clear answer on that. Some schools may have a separate transfer process for students, and other schools, like my own art center, we don't have a separate transfer process. And so we will evaluate all students kind of as first-year students and may give them additional transfer credit. So it does depend. It also depends on how much space they actually have in their class. So that's always something with transfer students, is that if you're trying to transfer into, say, the second or third year of a program, they may not have a whole lot of space for that program. So they may not admit a lot of students, or they might have grown recently. And so they have lots of space, or they're a school that's committed to bringing in transfer students. And so then they may have space set aside for transfer students. So there's lots of variables that you'll want to check with each individual school about. How comprehensive does the portfolio have to be in order for a student to be a competitive candidate? So I'm going to be upfront. A lot of these questions are going to, the answers are going to be, it depends. With this question, I would say it really does depend on what the school is looking for. So if you are applying to a school that is the portfolio application is for a foundation year program, and you're going to, they're expected to be showing a variety of different work and different skills that you have, then you'll want it to be fairly comprehensive and broad in that regard. If you're applying to a school like Art Center, where a product design portfolio is asking for you to produce 3 very specific types of products, then you don't need to have a very comprehensive portfolio to be competitive in that type of program. So it does depend on the program you're looking for. And the best thing to do is just to have a comprehensive portfolio put together, and ideally cater it and kind of tailor it down to different programs and what they're looking for. You want to make it easy for your reviewers. What is the average age of students admitted into arts programs? It's a great question. I think I don't know the exact number offhand. I'd say it's probably not too dissimilar from average age of university students in the US. We do talk a lot about kind of a traditional age and a non-traditional college age student, so students over the age of 25. And there's definitely a sizable presence of those students in the art world. I can only speak specifically for Art Center when I say that we have about a little over a quarter of our student body that is about students over the age of 25. So they are older students, not coming right out of high school, but that's different for each school. But I would say that it's a realm that a lot of people kind of come back to later in life and things like that. So it's not going to be a shocker if a student is a little older in one of their classes. And in a lot of cases, faculty really do appreciate the life experience that a student may gain from not going directly into art school after graduating from high school. And so they're the ones who are usually making those decisions on portfolios and who are teaching the students. And so I think it's great for older students to also consider going into those programs. So student says, working on my portfolio, but I'm mostly doing it with portraits and adding to it some botanical. I would like to know if you think it's an attractive portfolio, if I should do something else. So I think that, again, it depends on what you are applying to. If you're applying to an illustration program or kind of a visual arts type program, that can be good to show that your skills, but I think definitely showing some variety and thinking about things that maybe aren't just kind of a exercise for your class, and really thinking about your own personal goals and what do you want to do as an artist in your future. And if you have an idea of what that might be, and you might want to start working on something that kind of points in that direction. But I think that that's definitely a good foundation point, and could be a great portfolio there. I wouldn't have be able to say much more than that without seeing the work. But I think it's nice to have a nice variety in your portfolios. So yeah, it goes to the next question. Can you give some tips about a good portfolio? So I would say that you definitely want to determine what it is that you are, that the program that you are hoping to apply to and what it is that they're looking for. If you are applying to a program that's a sculpting program, then it might not be super helpful for you to include your industrial sketching designs. But if you are applying to a photography program, then you might want to have almost entirely photo work and not much drawing or sketching or anything like that. So it does kind of differ for each portfolio. My general guidance to students would be to present work that is that you are proud of and that it's representative of where you are today. In most cases, unless they're asking specifically for this, they don't need to see your early work or to see a progression of your work. They want to see where you're at right now. So I'd say stick to the work that you're personally proud of, that you think is a good representation of what you do, and go from there. So you don't need to necessarily have a sketch of a bust of an ancient Greek philosopher in your portfolio for it to be a complete portfolio, but you want to put in work that's showing kind of where you're at and your potential for growth. Graduate programs. So graduate programs is work experience an important requirement. It can be. It's definitely something that a lot of graduate programs will take into account when they are reviewing an applicant. I personally do not do recruitment or advising for graduate students currently in my role, so I don't know kind of detailed ins and outs of different graduate expectations, but I do know that from speaking to my colleagues in the graduate recruitment world, there is definitely that emphasis placed on your work experience. Especially if your undergraduate degree isn't totally aligned with what your the graduate degree that you are pursuing is. So like if you graduated with a bachelor's in economics, but you want to go on to an industrial design graduate degree program, it can be helpful in those cases to have some work experience to show your understanding of the field before going into that graduate study. And then do we offer online programs at Art Center? Currently we do not. That's something that we are working toward expanding and growing more robust in our services. So that's not something that we offer right now, but there are several graduate programs in the United States that you could look into a little further. So I believe that was all of the questions on the group chat. Were there any other questions that people had? Feel free to enter them in the chat, or if you would like to ask, I'd be happy to take those now.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you have any other questions before we finish, you can also unmute your microphone, so you can just type them on the chat box. For those of you who experience some trouble watching or hearing the video, remember that this session is being recorded. So when I share the recording of this session, I will make sure to also share with you the video so you can watch it again. Great, thanks, Jackie. Okay, so I don't think we have any other questions. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Dwayne, again for being willing to do this session as a webinar. This session was supposed to be an in-person event, but due to the current situation, we had to do this as a webinar. But thank you everyone for joining us today. You will be receiving the recording of this session later this week in case you want to share it with more students or review this information. Thank you so much, Dwayne.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too. Bye. Thank you, everyone.